Hello and welcome back to the Out of Spec Podcast. Today, I have a BYD Auto 3 owner based in the United Kingdom to really learn more about not only what it's like to own a Chinese EV, but own a Chinese EV in the United Kingdom. So today I have Sean. Sean, how are you doing, man?
Yeah, I'm doing very well, thanks, Isaiah. Yeah, thanks for having me on, actually.
Awesome. It's great to have you on. We've actually
Yeah,
filmed this once before, had some technical difficulties, but we're here back again to
we are.
to really learn more about your BYD Auto 3. Now, I'll kind of just start off. Why did you pick the BYD Auto 3?
Yeah, well, I'd probably have to back up a little bit further than that, actually, to sort of kind of like go into how I actually came into electric cars in the first place, because that kind of leads into that, really. So my original car was the Ionic, the original Ionic. I had that for a couple of years, and it was a fantastic car. Loved it. It charged really quick, for a very small battery. I think charged at sort of like 80 kilowatts, which doesn't sound anything, but in a 28 kilowatt hour battery pack, it's quite for sort of 20 to 80%. I think it was like used to be around about 17 minutes, so it was brilliant. But the problem became as time went on that battery wasn't really big enough to do longer trips and stuff like that. So we had to kind of, as a family, and also a growing family, we had to sort of think about, so what do we do there? So that's when the Atto came in, because that had just come out last year. Sorry, the end of 2023, sort of beginning into the 2024, which is when I took the vehicle. So we were looking around for something, and I just thought to myself, you know what, I'd really be interested in maybe looking at a Chinese car. And so BYD were just coming out with the Atto 3 at that time, or it had just been out for a short while. And so we kind of decided we'd give it a go, really. So we took it out for a test drive and all that kind of stuff, and had a bit of a feel for it and everything. And I think they let us have it for a weekend, really, to just get a feel for it and see how we
Nice.
get on with it, which we did. And I just kind of like the car, really. So I just thought, yeah, let's go for that. So that's kind of how it started, really, with that particular car. Yeah.
What was the buying experience like? It's interesting how, well, we in the United States, right, we don't have any Chinese automakers, and a lot of our foreign automakers have been here for decades. BYD is starting to roll out more of their models in Europe and the United Kingdom. What was the buying experience like?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few coming out, even just for this year alone. Actually, they've got several coming out. But so basically, how BYD work, they haven't actually like built out a network of dealerships.
Mhm.
What they do is they utilize other dealerships and take a section of it. So, for instance, like the local one to myself is a Ford dealer, and they just sort of recently moved all their transit because they're going more into transit than they are cars kind of over here, really.
Mhm.
So they've moved all their transit section into another part of the dealership, which freed up another section. So BYD basically taken over that section of the dealership to utilize for their own, for their own, for BYD. And across the country, that's basically what happens. So it could be a Mercedes garage, it could be a BMW garage, anything. Could be any automaker, really. And they just sort of, you know, set it up from their ends, get it all set up, and just take over a section of the dealership for BYD. So they're not actually building out dealerships themselves; they're just utilizing other dealerships from which to sell from, or lease from them, and all that kind of stuff.
Awesome. That actually makes more sense and would probably help with scaling out how many service centers and delivery centers that they have. I mean, looking at this map here, they have quite a bit across the UK, and you see here Scotland and Ireland as well.
Yeah,
This is like
yeah. I
interesting.
think I think to show you how fast that's grown, in 2024 there was just three. So there's
Wow.
one in Birmingham, which is kind of the Midlands towards the west a little. And then you've got London itself. There's one in London, and I think there was one in the sort of Midlands somewhere again, somewhere there. I don't think there was
Mhm.
actually one in the north at the time. So in that sort of 12 months, or just over 12 months now, you can see just sort of how it's kind of grown, really. So they've really grown quite quickly in terms of the dealership side. You know,
Yeah. What process of buying did you go through? Are you financing, leasing?
I'm actually leasing this one. It seems to be becoming a bit of a common thing over here at the moment. With the price for number one, of actually acquiring a brand new electric car, but also, uh, you know, it just kind of makes sense for a lot of people. So I've just got a PCP, so I can just trade it in after 3 years, or extend the lease, or pay off, what's left or whatever. Yeah, I can do it that kind of way with my particular. It's the way I went about it. But you can, some buy, some don't. Some lease. As I say, leasing this year's gone up a lot,
Mhm.
uh, and I think that's even the same in the States, isn't it? You're seeing a lot
Right.
more leasing, yeah,
Yeah, leasing is
going on.
becoming
Yeah,
super common here in the
yeah,
US.
yeah. And they're kind of doing a lot of deals that way as well. The automakers are starting to do a lot more deals on the leasing side as well.
Mhm.
So it's kind of more attractive almost, or it's an attractive option anyway, at least.
Can you tell us, I guess, the starting price, and if you don't mind sharing, I guess, what your lease deal is?
Yeah. So essentially, it's they start at 39,000. But that's for the top spec. I think the lower one is about 38,000, something like that. I'm paying about 350 a month for mine, so
Nice.
it's not that bad. Yeah,
And that's pounds, right?
yeah, yeah.
British pounds. Okay.
Which in our market is pretty good.
Did you get any like government incentives? Does the UK have anything like that to incentivize buying an EV?
We did when we got the Ionic. When we got the Ionic, there was some incentives then, um, and then, but they were quite short lived, and we didn't have them for very long. I know you guys over there, you're still having quite reasonably good incentives. I know from watching the out of spec channels. But no, here we don't have any incentives anymore. They'll throw in a free charger. I think that's probably about it. But there's no real, yeah, there's no real incentives, kind of thing, and which is kind of strange in some respects when you think we're in 2025, and by 2030, and here in the UK at least, you won't be able to buy petrol or diesel cars. So
Mhm.
it would just only be new vehicles will only be electric, or hybrid until 2030, until 2035, and then it goes to just only electric, full BEVs. So yeah, and of course, we're no different to any other country. There are a lot of people that are still wary about getting an electric car. But for lots of reasons. Maybe because they're a bit more expensive. Maybe they have a bit of range anxiety still, or that kind of stuff. I mean, we get a lot of press over here about they just catch fire everywhere, so that's another thing. So people are worried about, well, if I get an electric car, will it catch fire?
Mhm.
So there's a lot of misinformation out there, but yeah, so no. In answer to your question, there isn't really any incentives now, as such from the government.
And that makes sense. Of course, as we see EV adoption change, incentives
Mm,
start phasing out. Of course, China, they had huge incentives at first, and now that's something that isn't as common anymore for most provinces. And of course, Europe, like Norway, I believe in
mm,
February, 95% of new vehicle registrations were electric. So,
yeah,
not much of a reason to incentivize buying an EV any longer when, particularly certain European countries and parts of Europe are really just full of EVs at this point. Um,
yeah. I mean, from a European standpoint, Norway really are the leaders. I mean, they've been transitioning longer, and as you say, they're not really many incentives now, but there was a lot of incentives originally to try and get people over to it. And I mean, they are virtually on their way to like 100% really almost now. So they've really transitioned well. The UK is quite a bit behind that, but of course in the UK again, there is still a lot of interest, and we do have a very good variety of cars here, electric ones, which is one of the things that's really quite a strong point on the UK, I think, because we've got all the Renault ones coming, and there's a lot of exciting ones of them coming out this year. And we got a lot of there are Chinese ones coming over, but just all the big automakers, they tend to, um, you know, they tend to supply to the UK. So we do have quite a good variety, I would say.
And I guess what was the buying process for you like? So here in the US, right, we have our dealerships, and of course, some companies have direct sales, and so you can buy directly from the manufacturer. For BYD, what was that like? Did you have to start your process online, or was it strictly right a dealership process?
Yeah, it's basically a dealership process at the moment here. I have heard some murmurings down the line that it's going to be going that way, but at the moment it's through you do it through the dealership. So you basically rock up to the dealership, sit down and do all the paperwork and everything. If you're happy with everything, and then you just discuss it all from there and go from there really, whether it be a lease or whether you be buying it or however you do it. So
Hmm.
yeah, it's just really done through the dealerships at this moment in time with
Right.
BYD.
And I guess let's
Yeah,
actually move into the car itself, right? So you
yeah,
own a BYD Atto 3.
yeah,
What trim did you go for? Can you kind of more talk about
yeah.
your vehicle options?
Yeah, I think there are different ones uh, in different countries, I guess, really. But what I've got the BYD design, which is the top spec on this car, so you get everything. But one of the good things with BYD is they tend to be really, really well kitted out, whatever trim you really go for. So in the UK, we've got comfort and design. So comfort, I think the only thing is it doesn't have the electric tailgate. It's very minor things that it doesn't get compared to the top design spec, really. I think it's a slightly smaller screen as well. The screen I've got is a 15.6 inch screen, as you can sort of see there. And that's about it. I mean, they are really well. One of the wonderful things I like about BYD actually is that even outside of like the Atto 3, which of course was the first car that came in, even when there are upgradable software in either because there is going to be a refresh of the BYD Atto 3 this year, actually. But everything gets specced up, no matter what car it is. So if it's a BYD Seal, another car we have here, a saloon type, Tesla type shaped car, or that's the BYD Seal. So if that comes with improvements in terms of software, that will all be upgradable into my Atto 3 as well. With software over the air updates and all the rest of it. So that's kind of good. And even when you scale down to the smaller vehicles, because they have other models like the Dolphin and the Seagull, the
Mhm.
Seagull will be coming over here this year. That's a real small little town city car, but it's software compatible with mine as example. So you don't sort of they don't seem to cheap out that way, which I do like with BYD. So yeah, there you've got a picture there of the Dolphin. That's another
Yeah.
just slight one down from the BYD Atto 3, and again, that's got the same range as my car. I think it might be 260 on there for the miles, which isn't bad for a little town run around.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
so it's pretty good. Um, it's a 150 kilowatt motor with a 60.5, I think it is, kilowatt hour battery, and it's good for 260 miles. In the summer, you'll get that. In the winter, you're looking at more like about 200, 210, something like that. It's not a
Okay.
huge drop off, so it's not too bad. Because I know we might want to talk about the Blade battery, but that's a pretty good feature in the car.
Yeah. Let's in fact let's kind of talk about charging and I guess the high voltage
Yeah.
architecture. This is something we talked about for a bit, and I was kind of surprised. But yeah, charging. Can you tell us about the Auto Three's charging performance?
Yeah, this is for me one of the slight downsides of the Atto 3, in that it only charges at 89 kilowatts, which in 2025 for a mid-size SUV is pretty slow, really. So you're looking at in the winter. a good 45 minutes plus at a charger to just go from sort of 30 to 80% or a bit above. And in the summer, you're looking at probably around about 35, 40 as well. I mean, it's not an awful lot of difference really anyway in that side of it, but it's fitted with a heat pump. Um, but like I say, that charging speed is something that on my personal channel I do uh, complain about a little bit because you know it's 260 miles isn't really a deal breaker for road tripping, especially in the UK. I mean, if you think from south to north, it's a 6 7 hour drive. You know, we're a small country, really, effectively. So you could go on road trips with it, but with very slow charging like that, I think it should probably be somewhere around about 125, 150 at least would be nice. I think on that car, and so it's a little bit, down on where I'd hoped it would be for charging, I guess, really. And they're kind of across the range. They're a bit like that. I think the BYD still might actually charge at 150 kilowatts actually, but the shame of that is that it's fitted with uh, vehicle to load, yeah. So in other words, you
Okay.
can power stuff off of it.
Yeah.
So the natural reaction to that is, I mean, I live in quite a rural place, really, and it's actually where a lot of people head to where I live, a particular part of the country I live, which is just outside Gloucester, which is in the UK, it's kind of southwest, and it's set in what they call the Cotswolds. And the Cotswolds is quite a beautiful, picturesque, you know, scenic place, and a lot of people travel here for holidays in the summer and things like that. But you've also got Wales just across the way, another beautiful place. There are lots of places that, if you're an adventurous type, you can go out and actually explore
Mhm.
and that. But I was thinking to myself, would I actually do it in this car with all this slow charging and stuff?
Right.
So yeah, it's one of those sort of downsides, really. It's as a car, an all-round car, it's a fantastic car. Essentially, really, it's just that's that one little thing that I think lets it down a little bit. If it had a bit of, and maybe with software over the software updates, they can probably change the pattern of that. I don't know. Change the curb on it. I don't know, but so something I hope they do in the future.
Right. Yeah. At this point, I guess 150 kilowatt hour charging is what we're seeing as really the base for all EVs, even some of the cheapest EVs on the market now. And so, yeah, 80 kilowatts really isn't, I would say, cutting it,
Uh,
especially for a battery that size. I mean, it's not right as small as the Ionic, your original OG Ionic,
mm.
but it's still not a bigger battery. But 60 kilowatt. What's the exact battery size? Is it 60?
It's 60.5, I think.
Yeah,
It's the size of
60.5
the
is somewhat
battery.
tiny. So better charging would definitely help in terms of performance. Now, this has one pedal drive. Is that as well?
No, actually, it doesn't have one pedal driving either. It has two settings. It has standard and
Okay.
high. Standard is more or less coasting, really,
Mhm.
and high is a kind of there is regen there, but it's not going to bring you to a complete stop. So it's just going to slow you down, and then you're going to have to brake at the end, basically, essentially, really. So
Uh,
so unfortunately, it doesn't have one pedal driving. I did speak to someone about it from BYD, and they said that the Atto 3, because it's the first car in the UK, we're very much aiming it at a transitional car from people coming maybe from petrol and diesel
mhm.
to electric, and so they didn't want to have that overwhelming side of getting used to regen. And I mean, my answer to that was just put some like flappy paddles on the back, kind of thing where you can adjust it yourself. And
Yeah.
that's the way I think they probably should have gone, because then at least once you're either used to the car, or if someone buys the car that's already used to electric, they've got that option there. Because one pedal is quite nice, thing to have, really.
Yeah, one pedal super duper convenient. I guess if you can kind of talk about the blade battery, and I guess you were mentioning there, right? I guess it's one of your more favorite features of the car.
Yeah, yeah, it is really, because it's basically with the Blade battery, it's a very dense battery, and it can can store the energy for. I mean, even like in terms of the charging, you can charge it obviously to 100%. Not every day. It's not necessarily advised to do that, but you can regularly, and probably even once a week. I definitely do that because it just helps to keep that battery calibrated nicely on 100%. So
Mhm.
it's one of them vehicles which is okay to do that. But also with the heat pump in there and just the way it's all built into the chassis of the vehicle, it's just all sort of so well designed and put together, and everything works off of that. So it's a nice battery system. Is really what um, I think its life cycle is more charges than other batteries as well. I think you can charge these for a longer period or for certainly more cycles of charging than some other vehicles as well. So it's quite a robust. Um, I mean, we'll find out in a few years, I guess, really, with just how well it does. But so its longevity should be there
Right.
with it as well. So I think it's yeah, but I think it's a good package on the battery side, and of course these batteries are used in other vehicles. BYD do put these batteries in other vehicles as well. And I think that kind of technology goes into their buses because BYD also have a big, um, before they was even doing cars, they were doing buses. So they have quite a big battery side of the business that is supplying to, like even our London buses, pretty much
Mhm.
80% of them are BYD batteries in them.
Wow.
The electric ones, yeah,
Yeah, especially in China. I know Toyota has the BZ3, which is their electric sedan, and that also uses BYD's Blade battery. And it's a bit different than what we would typically see for a lot of other EVs, right? A lot of us are used to cylindrical cells, but instead we have like these long blades, I guess, in essence, right? Blade battery that BYD uses as their I guess saying here pioneering name in the battery industry for more than 29 years. Our latest game changing Blade battery has passed a series of extreme tests and rigorous conditions, making it one of the world's safest batteries. And this is something that BYD vertically integrates and creates themselves. But I mean, that's a whole different side of, I guess, Chinese electric manufacturing. And
yeah,
yeah, versus here in the US, besides Tesla, a lot of companies are still getting to that point where we're seeing more vertical integration and innovation
yeah,
within the battery space.
yeah, yeah. But it's I think the biggest thing I think with BYD that's so fascinating I find with them is that how prolific they are,
Mhm.
because they just are. I mean, here in the UK, when we get new models of cars coming out with various automakers, you're not expecting to really see too much maybe but here they're just getting them out one after another, one after another, I mean, this year alone we have there's going to be the BYD Seagull, the BYD Sea Line 7. We probably have all pictures for all these. I'm just reading them off really, but there's a few coming out. The BYD Atto 2, which is a slightly smaller version of the Atto 3, actually, which I think will actually sell really really well here, because it's a little bit smaller than the small is always good in the UK because we don't have the big roads for it,
Right.
and all that kind of thing. But there you are. You see, later this year that's arriving, and so and it's quite a nice looking car. It's quite tall, but at the same time, but it's obviously smaller. But one of the good things with BYD as well, that I do really really rate them for, is for their interior. Their use of interior space is very 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 good. I'm 6'3". My son is the same height as me roughly, and he can sit behind me in my seating position.
Mhm.
So that's pretty good really. And yeah, I mean it's a really nice car inside, and they've really sort of used the space well, I think. And so it's, I mean, you can get three adults across the back, no problem, on a reasonable journey actually, and a couple of children definitely. It also has isofix points on the two outer chairs that you see there at the back. There's actually two isofix points, so you can have child seats at the back, but there's also one at the front as well. You had a in the passenger seat, so there's actually 3 ISOFIX points in total in the car, which is quite good as well.
Nice. I guess onto the, I guess, actual road experience. I guess compared to maybe some of the other vehicles that you've driven, how does it compare, in terms of handling and real world conditions between city highway driving, acceleration?
Yeah. Well, it's no sports car, so it's no super beast that. But I think it has a 7.3 0 to 60, which
Mhm.
I guess for a mid-sized SUV is not that bad actually. But it's not. It picks up reasonably well. It's got 3 modes. It's got eco. It's got eco, sport, and just like a normal mode. I just drive it around generally in normal. Um, the thing about it, the chassis on it, the suspension on it's really, really good for the purpose of what the car really is for, which is obviously carrying families around, shopping, and
Mhm.
all this kind of stuff. It's got a perfect setup for the suspension. It's nice and wallowy and soft. So yeah, it's going to lean a bit in the corners, down the country lanes and stuff like that. Um, but at the same time, I mean, on a highway, it cruises along nicely, and it's just really really nice from that point of view. Don't really have any issues with that. Like I say, probably just maybe as I said, as we were talking before about the regenerative braking, would have been nice to have had a stronger setting, I think, on that. Really. But yeah, no. But even the brakes are really good. It does have a way of sharpening up the steering response and that in the entertainment system. So you can go into there and you can set it to a bit of a firmer setting, so you get a bit more
Mhm.
feedback from the steering. But when you're doing this sort of country lane stuff and sort of A and B roads. But for generally just for cruising along, yeah, it's just a really nice car in that way. So and the suspension setup seems really nice on it, and so I've got no complaints with the ride on it really.
Have you done any long road trips with it?
Yeah, yes, I have actually. Yeah, I've done a few trips, a few longer ones in it. So my son, I go to take my son to university a few times a year, so I pop down to there. I go to see my mum, and she's the other side of the country, so I'm driving over there. Then we've
Mhm.
had some family trips as well. So I mean, it's not unusual for us to do a 300 or 400 mile sort of trip, which is quite a bit for us here. Um, so out of spec, you'll balk at that and say, "What? That's going to the shops." But yeah,
I've done that like 4 or 5 times this month already. So
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. But for us here in the UK, you're obviously going to 3 4 hours to get you halfway out the country. So it's yeah. So in that respect, yeah, it's no problem. Um, it has had an update just recently to the mapping system, because one of the things I complained about before is it wasn't mapping to chargers, which is pretty basic thing now, really. I mean, you'd expect it to at least do that, but it wasn't even doing that. But it actually does that now. So it will. You can put in a route that would be outside of the range of the car, and it will map you into the various charges along the way. So you can either accept those or cancel them and put in your own ones or whatever. But it will give you a mapping system, and actually, to be honest, looking at it, I think that works reasonably well as well. I think most of the ones that it advises you to go into would probably be the ones you would use actually. So that seems to be, so they just updated that, and that's now a really I think quite important feature really on an
Yeah.
electric car.
Right. You want to make sure that the navigation and I
Yeah.
guess what exactly would you call it? I've kind of lost the word, but electric vehicles having the correct navigation for knowing what range it has and finding and selecting the correct chargers, it being reliable chargers, is super important. How many over-the-air updates have you gotten so far?
Yeah, actually, that's another thing that's good to speak about, because I probably haven't had as many as I. What they tend to do is they don't do too many updates, but when they do one, it's fairly major. Um, so they tend to put quite a lot on in one go. So
Mhm.
Like it might be things like changes on the infotainment screen, things like the positioning of where things are within the infotainment system to make it easier for you. So some more buttons on the front screen. Things like the heated seats were buried in menus before. Now they're just on the front screen, so you can just tap them
Mm.
on if it's on a cold morning, etc. They don't. It doesn't have a heated steering wheel. Funnily enough, that's one of the strange things there. It has heated seats, but not a heated steering wheel, which is kind of not on any of the trims. I don't know about other BYD products, but certainly on this one, I haven't found that, so that's not on there. So whether that comes as a update at some point, I don't know. So yeah, so you drive along with a nice warm bum and cold hands
Right.
in the winter for a while till the
Yeah.
car warms up. But
Right. Yeah.
but yeah,
Yeah. I want.
it's got some interesting features. Inside, I actually was attracted to the actual kind of like quite weird and wacky interior, really, because there's quite a lot going on in
Yeah.
there, and that isn't for everyone, and I do appreciate that. But I actually quite like that kind of quirkiness about it on the inside. It's actually a fairly clean car on the outside, but inside it's kind of quite different, and it's supposed to represent a gym with a lot of the components in there. So, I mean, I don't really see that myself, but I mean that's what they
Mhm.
do. And then you've got these guitar type strings built into the doors. Yeah, there's a US A and C port there. Not too sure why there's still A's in there really, but yeah. And if you can see those little vents just above there, they're supposed to represent dumbbells that you put on the end of a set of weights. That's what they're supposed to represent. I mean, um, through those little vents there. But
Yeah. Is that what BYD says? Like actual
yeah,
like.
that's
Wow.
their actual information they put out about the interior. And like the center console is meant to represent a what do you call it, treadmill.
Mhm. Interesting.
So yeah,
Yeah.
and the bit at the front there that you see, the creamy coloured sort of almost that bit there, yeah, that's meant to represent muscle sinew.
Huh. So really
Yeah,
physically building your dreams, right?
yeah. So really physically building your dreams, yeah. But
That's funny.
like I say, and the thing is, I mean, I've had it now for, well, it's coming up to is it 14 months now? It must be about 14 months or so now, but not a bit more than that. And I have to really be honest with you, I haven't had a single, I mean, touch wood, I haven't had a single issue with this car apart from changing tires. That's all. I haven't had any recalls. I haven't had any need to take the car in for anything, like panel gaps or something wrong with the not funny noises coming from the vehicle or anything. Is screwed together really well, this car, and that's one thing that I do kind of really admire. And we're starting to see that in a lot of Chinese cars now, is that they're actually built quite well, and this one is no exception. It's built pretty well. Yeah, there's your build your dreams logo, which on the new model that comes out later this year, this sort of refresh of that would just have BYD on the back, and they're not going to have the build your dreams anymore because a lot of customers have complained about it, saying we don't really want that. I actually quite like it for the reason being that people will stop and ask me, what is all that about? They'll ask me,
Mhm.
what does that mean? And so you then get talking to people about the car because
Good
so you
point.
can then start talking about it. They might be thinking about getting an electric car and not quite sure, but they're just kind of intrigued.
Right.
So there's two ways to look at it. You can either say, that's not a very good advertisement for the car, or you don't want it there, or you don't like it. But for me personally, I've never minded it because it opens up conversation.
Yeah, definitely. It's an interesting choice to put like the full meaning of what BYD is
Mm,
on the car itself. But yeah, I imagine it would definitely create some conversation about okay, what does this mean? And at first it was an interesting design choice, but it kind of fits. I don't know what it is, but I feel like it kind of fits the car. It doesn't seem like too out of place, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah. And I don't know if you just go back to the rear again for a second. Just
Yeah.
wanted to show you something there. Yeah, that the light bar goes right across there, by the way, at night, so that all lights up, and it's exactly the same at the front of the vehicle as well. You get like a light bar at the front and back, which looks really nice at night. I know it's on quite a few cars now. It's not exclusive to BYD, of course, but it does look nice.
Very cool light animation.
Hmm.
And what about the software? How good do you think the
Okay.
software
Yeah.
experience has been for
Yeah.
you?
Well, it's um, with the software, it's actually really good in the sense that it's snappy, get into the screens very, very quickly. So there's no issues there. It's not taxed in any way. You can see it really copes with it quite well with whatever chipset they've got in there.
Mhm.
But one of the downsides to it is that the information could be there could be a bit more information, a little bit more nerdy information for us EV drivers. So, a little bit more trip information, stuff like that. It gives you an average of your last 50 miles, what you've been using there in consumption and stuff like that. It's got a graph there, which doesn't really tell you very much, buried in the menus there. But it'd be nice to have miles per kilowatt, and a bit more sort of maybe um, how much you've done since last charge or that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So on that side of it, it's not the best, but everything works well. I mean, and it's pretty snappy. It's pretty quick. I've not had any issues with it. I've never come out sort of one day and or been driving along and it's cut off. I've had other friends of mine who've not with this, not with the BYD, but other cars that have said, "Oh, my infotainment system keeps cutting off. I've had to send it back in." So nothing like that. So it's okay from all that perspective. But the one thing that I would say is it could do with more information. So I'm hoping with software updates in the future, we start to see a bit more information on there, related to a bit more nerdier stuff, really, that a lot of us EV drivers like to have.
So like a lot of people appreciate how much data automakers give within the infotainment. I know Tesla now will give a ton of information. Rivian will give a ton of information down to the battery and motor temperatures. Ford has come along and done the same. We're seeing GM start to do that as well.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, more information definitely intrigues people and how helps them learn more about their vehicle. Of
I
course, this
actually,
also has CarPlay and Android
yeah,
Auto.
yeah. I actually have a theory that I sometimes think that the automakers underestimate us as drivers, like
Right.
transitioning from gas, from petrol, however way you want to word it, into electric. We're a lot more capable than I think
Right.
sometimes people think, and we actually love all the information. We do. We love it, especially with electric cars. I think even more so because we want to see how the car's using its energy. So that we can better use on our day-to-day use. We can better conserve energy and stuff like that. I love doing all that. So the more information, the better, really. Is the word I would say. Yeah,
That's perfectly putting it. The more information, the better.
yeah, yeah. It's just yeah. It's definitely something which I hope comes in. And as you mentioned, Tesla there. I mean, I think they are probably the best at giving you it's fantastic software in Teslas, and they are really class leading in that, and Rivian as well. And I just think if other automakers from China can adopt that as well, I think that'll really because they're building really good cars now. I mean, there's no two ways about it. I mean, like I just said to you, in 14, 15 months, it doesn't even have a rattle on it. I mean, it's got it's so well put together. So
Mhm.
they get all the other sides of it absolutely spot on, and you really are onto some serious cars here.
And
Yeah.
what is the adaptive cruise control? I guess lane keep. Does that work well for you? Does it even work on UK roads?
The adaptive cruise is, I would say, standard. I wouldn't say it excels in anything. It's a good level two, so you get it on the motorway, it will reasonably centre, and it will keep you centred and keep you to your speed and everything else, and keep you from a safe distance from the car in front. Once you start coming up to a lot of bends or anything like that,
Mm.
as with a few other cars as well with level two, they can. there doesn't seem to be any warning on it. It just seems to want you to take over quickly. So you have to be
Right.
really, really aware of it if you haven't got your, if you can be caught out a bit on that. But so yeah, when it's coming up to fairly sharpish bends, which we do get on our motorways here, actually, funnily enough. You guys in America got these wonderful straight roads. I love them so much. I can't wait to come over there and drive some of your roads. But yeah, there's some quite twisty bits on ours, and it doesn't like it. It starts to bing and bong and get you to take over. So you have to always be aware. But generally speaking, that's that's where you want to use it. For the sort of slow end side of it, in other words, from round town, because you can use it round town, it will pull away and keep a safe distance from cars in front. That works reasonably well as well. You just got to be a bit more careful, obviously, with pedestrians, and it's obviously not full autonomy or anything. So it's not full self-driving or anything near it. So you have to be a bit careful, but it can work quite well in that way as well. But I'd say its main use is basically on the motorways when you're going along at 70, 80, and you just, it does quite well on that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, pretty
As long as
standard.
you don't have too, as long as you don't have too many bends.
Yeah. In the
Yeah.
U.S., we don't have. It would depends on where you are. In Florida, it's a lot of the straight roads, but you go elsewhere, and I know you're saying like, oh, over here, it's a lot of areas. It's a lot of this on the highways, back and forth,
Mm,
so it can get kind of crazy.
yeah. But I think it's something that BYD will definitely be concentrating a lot more on as they bring out more and more cars, because that, of course, is becoming very big in China now. In China, it's very,
Mm,
very, very full self-driving is quite huge
right.
over there now. And they want to be uh, world leaders on that kind of stuff. So BYD is a big company that they will have to compete on that. So I'm sure we'll see better and better technology going into these cars with that regard.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. We
Yeah.
just saw BYD release their like God's Eye or the All-Seeing Eye vision software for autonomous driving. And for even the most basic BYD models, of course, like the more urban city driving autonomous software will go for the more expensive vehicles. But even for their everyday models, are getting some pretty good highway driving hands off and eyes off features. So it'd be interesting to see if you would get that in the UK as well.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure it will come. I'm sure it definitely will come. So, but I think they'll whether I don't know whether there'll be a leader on that BYD, because they do concentrate a lot on lots of models and
Yeah.
suiting different markets and everything like that. But they will definitely be in a much different place to where they are now. I would say in a few years, definitely.
Do you see a lot of other BYDs on the road? Is there like ever a thing like, oh, there's another BYD here?
Yeah, they're starting to get more and more. I mean, last year when I got mine, it probably took me about 6 months to see about two or three, believe it or not. They're really rare. You even flash at each other when you see each other because
Yeah.
it's so rare. Hi.
Right.
but at the end of the day, no, I would say they are getting more and more popular now. The Dolphin that's come out, which is a bit of a smaller vehicle to ours, that goes well in our market. I think the big one will be the BYD Atto 2 that you put up on the screen earlier. I think that's going to be a big seller here. I really do, because it's not a tiny car, but it's not it just size wise, it just fits our country so well. It's nicely kitted out, it looks nice. And I think that one is going to do really, really well in the UK. I really do. And probably the Seagull, which is a much smaller town car, sort of like Renault 5 size, that's going to be coming out a bit later in the year. And I think that will also sell well. Yeah, I think that's going to do really well.
Yeah, they have quite the bit
But
of
yeah,
models.
and the Sea Line 7, which you just passed there, that's another one that's going to be a big car here. Although that's larger than the Atto 3, that will go a lot in the commercial world. I think your business people will be snapping them up as well, because it's really nicely kitted out inside that one. And
Yeah.
I think it looks a really nice car actually. So that's a larger one than mine, so like a more fuller sized SUV really.
Yeah.
But that's a nice car. It looks really nice. So yeah, they're going places. BYD, they definitely, they definitely got a place here in the UK. I think so. Well, as you can see, we were showing earlier the map of all the dealerships going out. So
Right.
um, they wouldn't be doing that for no reason. So they're obviously going to have, you know, corner a bit of the market here. And it is very difficult for BYD, to be fair to China, when they're reaching out to all these different markets where you've got Mercedes and BMW and Mini and all these sort of established automakers that have been around for yonks. They've got to come in and compete with them, so they've got to come with quality products. Otherwise, people just won't, they'll just say BY who. So
Right.
they've got to be competitive.
Right.
So, and I think that's why, um, if you take certain cars, the top trim down to the bottom trim, there can be quite a cosmic difference. And most people will settle maybe on the middle trim. But with BYD, it's not really like that. There's not very much difference, as I mentioned earlier, between the different trims, not just in the BYD Atto 3, but even in other BYD products. They seem to provide a very high level throughout, which I think is a nice thing they do there as well. Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder how quickly we could see BYD starting to ramp in the UK. I mean, besides so much of what they've done so far, how quickly they could start, I guess, dominating some of the market. I mean, it's definitely interesting seeing how much BYD has expanded. They have, I mean, sold so much in Mexico, in our country just below us, Asian
Mm.
Pacific markets, Australia, Europe, even parts of Africa. They are selling. BYD is continuing to scale outwards, and so it'll be interesting to see how much they can, I guess, scale and compete with some of our larger automakers in the UK, like Volkswagen, um, and Renault and MG. You guys have so many other automakers in us.
Yeah. If they can focus on continuing with the quality and continuing with improving their software. On electric cars, software is as important as anything on the cars. Really, it
Right.
really is a huge part of an EV experience. So if the more and more they emphasize and put focus on that, going along with the good build quality, I think that's where they will make people will really learn to trust them then, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think that's exactly it. Once you learn that the vehicles can, I think there's a lot of skepticism with it being a Chinese vehicle, Chinese company, and we saw that just with Tesla or Rivian in the beginning. New automakers, Polestar, Lucid. People are a little skeptical at first, but as time goes on, you start furthering and showing your ability to be not only have good build quality, but good software quality, and your service ecosystem as a whole is complete. you know, uh, Consumers
Yeah.
notice that, and it reflects.
Yeah. I mean, when I had my first service, that was brilliant by the dealership. By the way, I just took it along. They gave me a vehicle to, a replacement vehicle, and rang me up, and there was a video to show you all what they'd done and everything, and it was quite a good experience, really. So, on my first one that I had done, excuse me. Yeah, so that worked out well. So there looks to be a good service side as well with them, from what I've seen. Obviously I've only had the one service, but there seems to be a good, and I haven't had to take it back for anything else. So I've not been I won't be able to comment on like if people have had faults or how that sort of all works. But I'm sure they're going to be of a pretty good standard on that because again it all factors into the fact that they're a new company here and everything else, and they know what they're up against. So they've got to be that way, really, I guess.
Were you looking at any other? I guess. I mean, I imagine you were electric models. What else was catching your eye besides this Auto 3?
Yeah, well, I actually wanted the Honda E, which is a tiny little car, but my wife wouldn't let me have one, so because it's going to be a bit too small for us. That was the car that's my dream car. I just love that car, the design of it and everything, and the quirkiness inside again, you know. But no, outside of that, I mean, we were looking at, what were we looking at really? Well, we was looking at a few of the French cars, so the Peugeots and the Renaults that have been coming out, which do sell really well here. So we're looking at them. But I just went for this. I partially went for it because I wanted to be an early adopter. Really, I wanted to be an early
Yeah.
adopter. I thought, no, I'm going to show some faith in this, and that was one of the points. And I also like the interior design, and that kind of thing. Because, you know, like I just said to you, I like a Honda E, so you'll probably already gather I like these wacky insides and interiors, and
Yeah.
full-on ones. But yeah, so that was that. So we looked at a few, but we settled for this one.
Nice. And what do you think, I guess, BYD has that is better than other brands? I mean, specifically for you to choose it out of the many EV options that you have, I guess what really stood out?
Mm, yeah, I think it's. You mean with the Atto 3 you're talking about, or just in
Yeah.
general all cars? Yeah, with the Atto 3. Yeah, I actually really love one of the things I love the most on this car is the clean design outside. It's not got too many cuts and swoops and all the rest of it. It's quite clean looking car. But then you've got this wacky inside, like I keep mentioning. It's got
Right.
this. It's just kind of those two things. Just it's almost like the team that done the inside had a good party the night before, and they come in and they said, "Let's just go for it. Let's just go
Right.
wild in here," you know. Or something like that. It comes across like that, you know. Obviously, it's not like that, but yeah. So I just that's just what hooked us really. And I think also their interiors, as I mentioned earlier as well about their interior space, that was another thing that was important for us because we're quite tall in my family. So the fact that we all fit nicely in the car, that's another good factor of it, really. Which is probably another reason why I didn't get the Honda E.
Nice. And I guess that's kind of going back, right? We talked about public charging, home charging for you. This is something we kind of touched on. So you don't have home charging.
No, I don't know. I live in a terraced house, so it's a house where you can't really have a home charger. So that's the biggest, um, obviously, difficult thing for me. But because we love electric so much, we weren't going to be put off by that. So we use a combination of fast charging locally and also doing slow charging where we can around the place, in shops, shopping precincts, and
Right.
all the rest of it. There's a big drive going on at the moment to get more community-based charging. We have a scheme here where you can utilize people that do have home charging. They can go onto an
Okay.
app and they can almost like allow you to charge for a fee. Yeah,
Hmm.
so there's schemes like that coming out now. So like in my actual area where I live now, there's about 7 or 8 other EV drivers
Wow.
that allow you to go onto an app and book their driveway to charge up the vehicle for a set
Right.
period. So they're doing little things like that. There's other more smaller hubs being built with slow charging on it to accommodate for people with no home charging. So there's things going on, but there's still quite a way to go on that. So yeah, I just try to. Obviously, I don't want to be fast charging every day, every time I need to charge up, because that would be pretty cruel to the battery. But so I have to mix up the two.
Right.
But yeah, it works out okay. It's not ideal as having a home charger, of course, really, but we just love in our family electric vehicles so much that we were prepared to take the hit on that, really.
Yeah. Is there anything about the BYD Auto 3 that you would change that you think that would just totally make the vehicle better? What would that be for you? Imagine the charging
Um,
side.
the charging, yeah, I mean, it would definitely be the charging curve. I think it needs to be a bit better than it actually is. It's claimed to have the best battery longevity, is meant to be really good in it, so I don't think it's going to harm it too much if you up that charging speed a bit. So that would be definitely one. I'd love a heated steering wheel actually.
Yeah.
Um, it sounds like a small thing, but one cold morning, we've had some really cold mornings lately. That would be, another thing it doesn't have on it is rain sensitive white water wipers. It's got the old fashioned, increment ones, um, but it has amazing dipped headlights for automatic headlights. So which you can set at night time, and it just and it's absolutely brilliant on that.
Mhm.
I've never ever blinded anybody in that car with that facility on there, because it cuts off just before they come into eye line. It cuts off the high beam. It's one of the best ones I've had in a car, actually. But yeah, so it doesn't have rain sensitive. So I'd like to have that on there, really. I think, if anything, um, just for the sheer fact that it's really annoying to keep on changing it to, get it to the right setting for the rain. Obviously,
Right.
rain's coming down. It changes speed, doesn't it? So um, but yeah, so they're really small, minor things, I guess. Really, what else would I change? I mean, as I say, the interior is really nice. Yeah, I guess probably really it's just to keep on improving that software as well. It could it could do with just pushing the boundaries a little bit on that one.
And I
But
guess,
yeah,
uh, would you buy another BYD? Do you think that? I mean, of course, we see all the other models that BYD is slowly going to be bringing to the UK. But yeah, do you sort of see yourself buying another BYD in the future?
I do. Yes, I do, because there there's two things there. One, BYD are improving all the time. They're not standing
Mhm.
still. That is for absolutely sure. And where they'll be in, say, 3 or 4 years' time, when I come to change this car, or maybe 2.5 years, whatever it is, when I change this vehicle, I know there'll be other products out there that will be advanced on from this one. So
Mhm.
I think and because I know they're well built, and I trust that side of them, and uh, I think I trust the company really in that regard. So I don't have a problem with it. So I think I probably would definitely go for another one.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't think there'd be a problem with that.
And
And they are
if
making they are changing. They are definitely improving as they go along. So
Mhm.
that's the sign always, I think, of a good automotive company, is when they're progressing. When they're taking steps forward.
Right, they're scaling fast in the UK, which is definitely proof
Mm.
that they're looking to be there for quite some time.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, they definitely are.
And I guess, kind of as a exit note, for those who, of course, a lot of our viewers don't live in a region where they could buy a BYD Auto, but I guess two notes for those who might be looking at a BYD Auto 3. What advice would you give them?
Um, Basically, I would. Well, if they're living in an area where they can obviously get one, just go along, drive it for yourself, take it out, have a feel for it. Um, like I say, this car, I've been quite harsh on it in terms of, like, with the charging speed and doing long distances in it. But if we take the average household, what they actually do, they go to work, they come home, they take their kids to school, they pick their kids up from school, they go to the gym in the evening, they
Mhm.
come, all the sort of day-to-day things that generally most people do. This car slams it because it's comfortable, it's got good space in it. So yeah, just go along, test drive it, and see what you think. But I think you'd be quite surprised about the drive, the nice smooth drive it has on it, and the quality of that. And yeah, it's just a nice all round car from that perspective. So yeah, just go along, test drive one, and see how you feel. And I'm sure you'll fall in love with it, like I have.
And for those, yeah, for those
Hmm.
who don't live in an area who could get a BYD, I guess what would your, I guess, statement about Chinese EVs? I might cut this part. I'm trying to think of the best way to place this question for those who don't own. So for those who don't live in a region where BYD sells vehicles, I guess what would your statement or opinion be to them who may still be skeptical about Chinese EVs?
Yeah, I think eventually, let's be quite honest about this. The way China are going, they are going to really take over, whether we like it or not. We can all resist it as long as we feel we can, but it's going to happen. And I just think you're better off embracing it than stiff arming it, really, and just be a bit more open. At the end of the day, they're selling some amazing products. I mean, we're talking about BYD here, which is just one of many, many, many Chinese companies out there that are going to be coming across the world at some point or other. And they're not slowing down. They're keeping on going. They're ramping up. Their speed is frightening. How fast they. I mean, Out of Spec have been brilliant actually with their China videos they've been doing recently from when Carl went there. And at the end of the day, they are really to be taken seriously. I think so, really.
Yeah.
And it's you don't want to miss out on what are going to be very good products. Really, at the end of the day,
Right.
they really, really are. And they're going to cover everything from luxury vehicles right down to your town runabouts. So and BYD will be a big player in that, of course, as being the largest. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited as well. I mean, of course, with the tariffs and restrictions we have here in the U.S., it might be a while before we get Chinese EVs, if at any time at all. But for the rest of the world, it's clear that a lot of Chinese automakers are taking over and growing really fast. So I thank you so much for learning, helping us learn more about your BYD Auto 3. Of
Mm.
course, you have your own channel, right? The EV Bloke. So people can check out your channel if they want to learn more about
Yeah.
your BYD Auto 3 as well as some of your thoughts about current BYD things. But thank you so much, Sean.
No, thank you, Isa. I really appreciate it. And yeah, thanks for having me on and having the opportunity to share about the car.
Thank you so much. Of course, yeah, we'll have to have you on anytime we get some more BYD things and topics. I'll definitely reach out to you so you can get more perspective from a BYD owner now that I personally know one.
Yeah, yeah. Be more than welcome for that as well. Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This is the Out of Spec Podcast. My name is Isaiah, and I will see you guys in the next one.